And are you refreshed?
Yes.
Good. Now what?
So my question's about whether it makes a difference at what level of manifestation, whether thought or thought form or energy or in the three-dimensional world, we try and change our focus. For example, I know you talk a lot about changing our thoughts. I wonder if it matters much whether we approach changing our state from the point of view of energy. Does it matter if we are doing it with music or dancing in a three-dimensional world? Does it matter whether we are trying to do it? Is there a higher benefit to be accomplished by doing it as thought as opposed to...
Here's something interesting about this. As you are sifting through life, you cannot help but think about it. You're contemplating it. You cannot help but notice and converse about what's going on. So in the step one, we haven't talked about this in this seminar yet, but there are 3 steps to the creative process. Right. The first step is step 1, which contrasts just stirs up in you. Right. Is the asking step. Right. And then step 2 is the work, really, of source energy to draw together the components, the cooperative components of that which you are asking about. And step 3 is you then achieving a vibration that causes you to be one of the cooperative components so that you can be drawn in. This is the easiest way we have of explaining this. So during step 1, that is really a contemplative, thought-provoking, thinking, sifting, sorting, conversing part of your world. In other words, step 1 is really a thinking part of the world.
So that's more thought. That comes more from thought.
It is in the sense that as you are deciphering, in other words, you just can't focus on anything without it being thought. Everything that you contemplate is thought. Not just the things that you translate into words that you are rolling around in your mind. In other words, thought is observation. Thought is vibration. Let's stay with this word for just a little bit and really get to the basics of what a thought is, because a thought and a vibration really are one and the same thing. And energy and vibration and thought are really all the same thing. And focus is just the directing of thought or the directing of vibration. So they're really, it's sort of splitting hairs about whether we're talking about thought or energy or vibration, but it almost is whether we're talking about thought or vibration or energy or emotion, because they are also closely linked one to another. You cannot have a thought without the thought that is active within you. Let's start in another place. You cannot focus on anything without activating within yourself a vibration about what you're focused upon. And when that vibration is activated within you, now it has a vibrational relationship with the way the larger part of you is seeing that same thing right now. So let's back up just a little bit and amplify that, because that means you out here on the leading edge in your physical body can never focus on anything that the source energy part of you isn't focused upon the same thing from its perspective. How about that? That's why in every moment there is an emotional indicator that lets you know what kind of thought you're having in relationship to the kind of thought that source is having. In a real rough example, it would be you looking at someone and finding a flaw, and source looking at the same person and finding only positive aspects. And the discord between those two approaches equals the negative emotion that you feel. Or you finding something to appreciate as source is finding something to appreciate, and the positive emotion indicating the alignment of energy. So now let's start again. So in the step 1 phase, where you are focusing and we'll say thinking and observing, of course there are feeling responses to it, but let's just call step 1 a more thinking part of the process. Now step 2 is source really thinking about what you're thinking about, but thinking about it purely from the most evolved state that you have put it. In other words, all through your life, you knew what you didn't want, you knew what you did want, you knew what you didn't want, you knew what you did want. And so you have evolved into this vortex of creation, a creation that now you're on the subject. Source is thinking about it as far as it is evolved and inside the vortex thought. We like where this is going, do you? So now step 3 is where you are going to make an effort to think your way into the vortex too. And you know that you've done it when the feeling within you is one of alignment or one of love or one. So to answer your question specifically, first we'll answer it generally. We don't think it matters whether you're calling it thought or emotion. It's all focused. Just do something that makes you feel good. But if you really want to get technical and you really want to get this figured out in a way that you like to approach things with some specifics, we would say you do more thinking in step 1 and you do more feeling in step 3.
So does it matter what kind of feeling? Does it matter whether you're thinking more in step 3 or feeling more in step 3?
Well, now here's where it really gets good, because if you have felt your way in the step 3 part of the process into alignment, now you're in the vortex. And inside the vortex, remember what we said earlier? Do 100% of your affirming from inside the vortex. So once you have felt your way in and you're stable there, now be as specific as you can be and still feel good. You've been hearing us saying that for a long time, haven't you? Be as specific as you can be and still feel good. So what happens with most of you is you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, the vortex is growing, and occasionally you stop complaining and the vortex takes you in. And now you're in the vortex, and now because you're accustomed to thinking, because you've been thinking, it's what you do, you're a creator, you have trained your mind to be very responsive to thoughts, so you're thinking, and when you think thoughts that are inside the vortex thoughts, they become more interesting, it is more exhilarating, you feel more passion flowing, and when you try to get more specific than you've practiced well, then the vortex throws you out. So the rule of thumb, someone offered that phrase recently. We like it, except that it originated with people being strung up by their thumbs. But the rule of thumb is that when you are outside the vortex, the more general you are with your thought, the more likely you are to get in the vortex. That's why we're encouraging Esther to go through the alphabet and just find a good feeling word that starts with A and then a good feeling word that starts with B. It's why we've encouraged all of you from the beginning of our interaction through Esther with you to find time to meditate every day just to quiet your mind, because focusing upon a dripping faucet is not specific thought. It's a general thought, and it's a thought that's quiet enough and not resistant usually that will allow you to get into the vortex. So quiet your mind as best you can, do whatever it takes to get into the vortex, and then do all of your deliberate thinking from inside the vortex. How's that? For those who are the likes of you, who are deliberate creating, who are really out here on the leading edge, that's the way we would begin playing this creative game. We would we would soothe ourselves into the vortex, and then we would think until the vortex throws us out. And then we would soothe ourselves into the vortex, and then we would think until the vortex throws us out. Until we have literally practiced inside the vortex thoughts about everything that comes to us commonly to think about. In other words, we would work the bugs out of those parent-child relationships, and we would do it fast. In other words, from no matter what they're like right now, we would get into the vortex and we would think from a standpoint of positive aspects and praising until we have trained ourselves to see the people that we must bump into. That employee and employer thing that you were talking about, we would train ourselves to find appreciation. We make long lists of positive aspects. We would practice good feeling thoughts on every subject until those are the easily activated thoughts.
Right, and doing that in the vortex.